Hello guys, and welcome to the Top Table Wargaming YouTube video. It's been quite a while since I've had a chance to record a video. It's been half term with the kids, so we've been away and the weather's been really hot, so we've been making the most of the nice weather. And also I've been struck down with the demon that is hay fever, which has literally knocked my socks off. And due to the severe hay fever that I suffer from, it's caused other things like chest infections and things like that, so I've been a little bit poorly. Still not 100%, and I've took a day off, so I've decided to get some videos recorded. Now, as some of you may have seen, I recently built for one of my boards for the Scouring of Cheshire tournament the Laketown Town Hall, and also finished off Bard's House, which I started a while back. Now, when I done Bard's House, the paint job that I done was very basic paint job, sort of undercoated in black, then give it a base coat of a dark brown and just lightened up the browns with dry brushes. And when I done it, it was fine. I looked at it, and the more I looked at it sat there on the shelf, the more I disliked it. I just thought it looked really cartoony, and I wasn't happy with it. So I started to experiment with my airbrush and some different shades of brown, and actually looking at the shades of brown that are in sort of weathered wood that's been wet and dried out and then been wet again and dried out, and you know, basically just been out in the elements. And for someone like myself who works in wood, I was quite surprised when I took a closer look what I actually sort of realised. Weathered wood isn't sort of your basic Rhinox hide lightened up from there, or dryad bark. It's a lot lighter. There's a lot of beiges in there, a lot of gold and browns in there, and funnily enough, greys. There was a lot of greys for the shading and things, which, well, you know, you don't realise these things till you take a look. So anyway, without me waffling too far, this is an example of the kind of look that we want to go for on the Games Workshop Laketown house. I'm going to do it a small version on this the boat from the Laketown kit, just to show you the technique itself, and then you can sort of use that to your own, on your own scenery and terrain and stuff. The good thing about this technique is you can change it, so if it comes out and it's too light, you can just darken up the colours. You just go with different shades. I don't think it's going to be too dark because it does come out quite light, and bear with me on the video because when you first start doing it, it's a bit scary. When I decided to change the colours and use these lighter colours and I decided to put them on the models, I was looking at it, I was thinking, this isn't going to work, this isn't going to work, but I've seen it through and I was very, very happy with the way it turned out, and also other people seem to be happy with the way that it turned out. I posted pictures of the Laketown Town Hall finished on numerous Facebook pages, and accumulated, it got over 1,000 likes, and people asked, you know, there was a lot of people asking about the paint job, so I decided to do this video. So without further ado, I'm going to be using an airbrush. I've got my Badger Patriot, which is sort of mid to high range price wise. It's a nice brush. You don't have to go mad with your paintbrushes, your airbrushes, sorry, for this technique anyway. You can use a budget airbrush. You've just got to sort of have a bit of practice with it, get used to the trigger action, and you know, you don't want to sort of, you don't want to overload the model with paint. That's the best way that I can put it, because it's just going to look blotchy. So you'll need an airbrush. If you use an airbrush, I do recommend that you use a face mask with an air filter on. I mean, if you're doing the odd little bit, I suppose it's not too bad, but if you're going to be in a room for like 5, 10, 15 minutes using an airbrush, you really do need to use one of these. You don't have to get one like this. You can pick them up from B&Q or any other DIY store. The cheap ones for a couple of £, for a bag of 5 or a bag of 10, the throwaway ones. Just, you know, make sure you use them, because otherwise you will have chest issues. Also, I use a latex glove, just basically because I got sick of getting paint all over my hands. So you'll find that you're holding the airbrush with your one hand and holding the model with the other hand, so you only need one glove. And that's it really. So what we'll do, we'll come back in a second and we'll get started. So as we can see, I've given the rowboat a nice undercoat layer. I use a plastic grey primer. There's different brands out there. The one I use is from High Coat. I like this primer because it's got a nice, very matte texture to it, so any layers on top of this now will stick very, very well. So yeah, so I mean, you don't have to do a grey base coat. You could go black if you wanted to. You could go white. I always tend to use grey regardless of what I'm painting. It's just a habit. There's no particular reason. I find that the paints go on it well, and yeah, it's just a nice sort of middle shade. So we've got the base coat on. What we'll do now, we'll talk about the colours that we're going to use. So the colours that I'm going to use in this particular tutorial, again, you can change these to suit. They're all Vallejo Model Air colours. Some will go on with the airbrush, some will go on with a brush, and I'll explain as I go through what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. So the base colour that we're going to be working off, that I use, is Model Air Concrete. It's a nice mid brown stroke grey colour. It's a very, very nice warm colour. I quite like it. From that we're going to get a nice even coverage over the whole model. We're then going to go from that to Model Air Light Brown. Yeah, I know we're going to use a very, very small amount of this, and all we're going to do is we're going to break up the concrete colour on the model itself. This is going to act as a highlight, so we're going to be picking out the edges and the sharper points, the more raised areas, but also on the flat areas, just the odd little spot, just again, like I say, to break up so there's not too much of a flat, boring area on the model. It's quite a small model that we're going to be doing the tutorial on, so that shouldn't be an issue. After the light brown, again, we're going to go to Model Air Wood. Now this, when you get this on, this is where the model starts to panic you a little bit, or it panicked me anyway, because it's a very orange brown. And again, this is going to act as, visually it's going to look like the base colour, even though it's not. And what we're going to do is we're going to sporadically put this in. We're going to break up the harshness of the difference in those two colours. And yeah, I'll show you as we go. Now from there, that's the end of the airbrush work. We won't need the airbrush again after those three colours. From there, we'll get a very lighter, almost beige brown. For this I'm using Sand Ivory from Model Air, and we'll water this down to almost, probably actually thinner than a wash. And it sounds quite strange to be using a light colour as, and applying it like you would a wash. But if you bear with me, and you'll see from the technique, the way we put it on, that it works very, very well. From there, the wood itself is done. That's all the brown colours done, and then it's just shading. Now we're going to do the shading. We're not just going to put a wash on it. We're going to go in and we're going to pick out those lines, and what we're going to use there is, well, you can use any grey, but I'm going to use Model Air Dark Sea Grey. And again, we're going to water this down so it's very, very thin, almost transparent, and we're going to put this on in a couple of layers. Now you may be lucky enough to get the perfect consistency and get it down in one layer. I wouldn't recommend trying to achieve that. If you achieve it by accident, that's fine. If you keep it too thick, it just starts to look silly on the model. You want it nice and thin. You do all your lining, and once your lining's done, you let it dry, and you'll have a look, and you'll know from looking at it whether you need to go over those lines again. I highly recommend that it's worth having that bit of patience, and just wait until it's dry, putting a very thin coat on, and seeing if you need a second coat. The effect that you'll get is much better than trying just to line it in one and sort of rush through it. But it's entirely up to you. You might be a better mixer at paint and judging the consistency of things than I am, and get it in one go, which if you can do that, Fair play, I wish I could. Excuse me. So without further ado, I'm going to pop my mask on and I'm going to get a base layer down on the concrete. And first thing I'm going to do before I start painting is I'm going to lay a sheet of paper down over my cutting mat so I don't have any mess to clean up at the end. So we'll come back in a second. So here we go, we're going to get the base layer on. I'll put my mask on and we'll crack on. I'll probably try and speed through these so you're not sat there boring just watching me spray paint onto a model and go through the stages. Here we go. So there we go, that's our first layer of concrete. As you can see with the airbrush it goes on nice and smooth and you get a nice coverage. You don't have to be, it doesn't have to be thick, it doesn't have to be too much, because this is basically just sort of a cloaking layer that everything else is going to sit on top of, and we're going to blend them all in at the later stage. So we're going to get that dry. I'm going to use the hair dryer to speed up the process for filming purposes, and we'll come back with the next colour. Okay, so as you can see it's nice and dry. We've got a nice flat base colour. That's the original grey underneath, so you can see the difference. We're now going to come in, and what we're going to do is we're going to pick out the high points and any highlights that we want, and also just break up any flat areas using the light brown. So again, I'll do this technique, I'll probably speed the camera up just so it doesn't get boring, and yeah, we'll come back in a minute. Okay, so as you can see, again, this is where the point where I'm saying it starts to look a bit like, oh, I think I've made a mistake. Don't worry, persevere with it. I've picked out the highlights on the boat, on the edges of the seats inside the boat. You can see some sort of like leopard spots inside on that flat area. I've done that. We're going to show you how sort of to break up the flat areas. Like I say, it's not a massive flat area inside the boat, but the technique's the same. And then as you can see, these parts inside, we're just going to highlight them like so. Now when you want to highlight with an airbrush, you don't want it to go everywhere. Obviously the further away, the cone of the spray will cover a larger area, and the closer you are, you can get like a tighter spray, and you can be more controlled with it. So that's all we've done there, just like so. And the beauty of an airbrush is, handling it wise, it almost dries. If you get the right consistency, it dries almost instantly as soon as it's on the model, which is great. And as you can see, this is why I said wear a glove, because if you're like me, you're a bit messy and you're going to get paint everywhere. So that's the light brown on. We're now going to move on to the more orangey colour, which is the wood, and we'll come back in a second. Okay, so we now have the wood colour in the airbrush. We're going to do a very similar technique. We're going to kind of blend what we've just previously done with the light brown. We're going to start blending that in. Again, it looks quite garish when this goes on, but just persevere with it. Like I keep saying, I promise you'll be happy with how it turns out if you want that aged, sort of rotting, waterlogged wooden look. So I'll speed the camera up again. I'm going to go in, and just to explain before I do it, like I say, all I'm going to do is I'm going to start sort of blending in. So any of the patches in between the lighter and the concrete colour, we're going to just be dotting, putting a few sort of unnatural. We don't really want to see how this is like a leopard skin, circular dots. We're going to try and break that up. We want it to be more sort of natural shapes and shades and things like that. And what this does, it just sort of warms the wood a little bit, brings a nice bit of colour to it, brightens it up a little bit. So I'll speed the camera up again and we'll get going. So as we can see, we've broken everything up, and again it looks like some sort of mad techno orangey camo, but like I keep saying, bear with me, the next stage is going to change this significantly. So I'm going to go and give that a quick dry with the airbrush, clean out my airbrush, sorry, and we'll come back with the next stage. Okay, so what we've done now, we've got the very light beige, the ivory colour, in a little mixing pot, and I've gone slightly more in the favour of water, about 60-40 mix, and it makes like a wash. Depending on the brand that you use, you may need to go a little bit thinner. And what we're going to do is we're going to get some on a brush. I'm using a flat brush for this. You don't have to use a flat brush. You can use whatever kind of brush you want. I just find using a flat brush helps you sort of blend it easier. And what we're going to do, whichever way your wood runs, the planks run, we're going to apply, and we're going to drag the wash along like so. Yeah. Now we're going to do one even coat first, and the second time we do it, we're going to, like I said, we're going to go over this twice. The second time we do it, we're going to do the planks individually, and we're going to miss the odd plank out. Yeah. And what that does, it just sort of just breaks it all up, gives a sort of individual plank look rather than just a plastic model painted. So starting off, we're giving the whole model this light ivory wash like so. There we go. And we'll do inside the boat also, and this takes the harshness down of that orange straight off the bat. Make sure you get in there. You see it running into the creases in between the planks. That's fine, because we're going to shade that in the next stage anyway. We want to make sure every bit of wood is covered in this ivory wash. And again, it goes against everything I've ever been shown, been taught, painting wise. You know, a wash is for shading. This isn't for shading. This is basically just sort of lightening everything up, but still letting all the other colours shine through, and it sort of blends everything in. Yeah. So you make sure everywhere's done. Yeah, on the bow here. Don't worry about it running like that. You can just very difficult doing this on camera, I have to say. My sort of inbuilt auto instinct is to pull the model closer to my eye. I keep forgetting that it's got to be on camera. So any finger marks, just brush over. Now obviously with that being a wash, that's going to take a little longer to dry. You can speed that up using the hairdryer, which is what I'll do, and we'll come back in a second. So here we go. As you can see, it's starting to take on that weathered look. Yeah, all those oranges are starting to disappear. It's not looking as orange. It's still looking very, very, very 2D at the minute. So what we're going to do, we're going to use the same mix, and I'm going to use a thinner brush. I get a lot of these brushes for things like this from, you know, the cheap hobby stores, Poundland and things like that. It saves you good brushes. So what we're going to do, we're going to pick out some individual boards, and we're going to go over them again with the wash. And you may need to do this 2 or 3 times. Excuse me. Don't be afraid of doing it 2 or 3 times. Yeah, you can whack that on. And it just breaks it up a little bit. Try and get one on here. Get a bit much on one, you can soak it back up with your brush and spread it out, you see. trying to watch what you're painting and stay in the lines, and watch that you're still on screen on the camera is quite awkward. So I hope that's coming out. You can see that. I'll do a couple of these. So we'll do this one. Do this one. Just to break that up, and then we'll do this top plank on the side. And on the other side, we'll do the lower plank. And don't worry if you go over, it's fine. Because it's so wet, you can just mop it up, so it won't take long to dry. All you do, I'll show you here because you can see I've gone over, is clean your brush, dry it off, and mop up any mistakes. Just blend it in using the dry brush. Okay, and we'll do the same on the outside. So I'm just going to go around the boat. I'll probably speed the camera up again for you, and just pick out, just lighten up some of the planks. Okay, so we're getting there now. What I'm going to do again off camera is I'm going to do exactly what I've done again. I'm going to let that dry, and I'm going to go over again and just add another layer of that ivory, and then we'll come back after I've done that on the next stage, because you don't want to see me keep doing the same thing over and over again. So we'll come back in a second. Okay, so now onto the shading. We're going to use the dark grey. Like I say, I was using this sea grey. You can use any grey that you like. Mix it into a wash, and with this we are actually going to be lining in the shading. So anywhere you want shading, you're just going to line it in. So that's the first layers on, and as you can see, it's already starting to look how we want it to look in the end. Now I'm going to let that dry. In fact, I'll give it a quick blast with a hairdryer. I'll put another layer of the shade on, and then we'll come back. So that's all the shading done, guys. What I'm now going to do, and this bit's optional, you could stop there if you wanted to. You know, if you're doing a lot of terrain and you need to get it done quick, you can stop there, and that's fine, that's perfect. It looks really good, I think. But what I'm going to do on this is I'm just going to start sort of picking little bits out. I'm going to use the ivory neat, not thin down, so it's quite thick. Yep, and I'm just going to put little, not dots, just sort of little marks on the wood that look like sort of little chips in the wood that it's took by, you know, hitting the edge of a jetty, or, you know, rocks that on the side of a riverbed or something like that. Just not patterned. Try not to do it in a pattern. Try to do it very, very random. That's what you want to achieve. And sometimes what a nice thing is across the top is a nice sort of straight, see, because that's where it would get like them long scratches where it drags along a jetty. And also you can sort of edge highlight further with the a neat ivory like so, and what that'll do, it'll just make the edges more prominent, like so. Yeah, and what this does, this is just weathering. This is just, you know, adding a bit of detail. You don't have to do it. I always find that little V's, tiny V's, look more natural than a dot. So I always try and do like a little V or a little L shape, if that makes any sense whatsoever. I just think it just looks 10 times better. So we'll just get that edge also, make that more prominent. And there we go. And yep, I'll probably go a little bit further with that before I put it onto my board, but that's just how you weather. So that's basically the wood effect finished. Let me know if you guys are going to have a go at that. Let me know what you think. You can dot to those colours to make that as dark or as light as you'd like. Don't be put off by the first couple of stages where, like I say, you've got leopard spots and it looks a bit iffy, because as you can see, the end result is much more realistic. To me, that looks like an old rotting boat. You know, it's not new, it's not brand new, it's not new wood, it's been used, and it's perfect for my board, which is taken off Laketown from the movie. For me, that's how most of the wood is going to be. I have to repaint all my platforms. Whether I'm going to get time to do that before my tournament, I'm not too sure. I'm going to try, so everything ties in, everything looks cool, because I think that looks bang on. That is exactly the colours and the look that I got from going out of my garden and looking at a fence post that hasn't been painted for 2 years, and it's been weathered and rained on and dried out with the sun, and then rained on again and dried out, and they were the colours that I come up with. Like I say, depending what kind of colours you want to go for, you can doctor that, but the techniques are the same. It totally goes against everything that I thought about painting wood. For me, painting wood was your basic Rhinox hide and start dry brushing up through your dryad bark and your lighter browns. This is now how I will paint wood all the time. I hope you've liked the video. If you have, like it, share it. I'm trying to build up the subscriber lists. I've got a few more little technique videos to come up. If you like the painting ones, let me know. If you're more into the terrain ones, let me know. And I'll try and cater to what people are asking for. If you have a go at this technique, please let me know. Post the pictures on any of the Facebook groups, you know, the terrain groups that I'm part of, or the Great British Hobbit League Facebook group, and tag me in them so I can have a look. Let people know where you got the technique from, etc. Link to the video. It'd be greatly appreciated. You know, I'm doing a lot of this in my spare time. It's not something I get paid for, but I enjoy doing it. I enjoy getting the feedback. I enjoy interacting with you guys. You know, it's my hobby. I really enjoy it. So anyway, keep on gaming, guys, and keep your eye out on the channel, because there is stuff coming. I know I keep saying it, but there is stuff coming. I've got stuff in the pipeline. I'm just so busy at the minute, and everyone who I normally game with and do back rips with is also so busy. We're all really busy at the moment, and it's just tough to get together and get things filmed. But I have got a list of things to get through, and there's some exciting stuff coming. So I'll speak to you all soon. Take care, guys.